That while all of this listening has been going on, while the contemplation's going on, while the search is going on, while whatever's going on, what you are remains absolutely still, absolutely present, absolutely aware, absolutely absolute, unchanging by whatever it is. And that is what is being pointed to.
What you're about to hear is a podcast interview with John Greven, the author of the excellent book Oneness. I recommend listening to this podcast several times. Thanks for listening. What's the message of nonduality?
Well, you've asked a question that I don't want to give a simple answer for, but all the cliche answers are really all we've got. That non-duality is a message that what you take in yourself to be isn't real. You are not. That there isn't two. But I think in context to the question you asked, the deconstruction is purely a brain thing. I mean, it's what produces a paradigm shift to where I no longer believe in this set of concepts and ideas about who I am that I've always taken to be true, because now I see that they're not real. And that doesn't have anything to do with non-duality or the absolute that you are. It's a brain thing, and it's like realizing that there is no Santa Claus. By looking at the evidence and discovering for yourself that the Santa Claus never has been and is not real. And so in the deconstruction, you realize that this person, this me, this I, is not real. That realization, that paradigm shift, whatever you want to call it, has absolutely no impact on what you truly are, on that absolute self. All that paradigm shift is another appearance within what you are. It's as meaningless as anything else. Believe in Santa Claus if you want. It makes no difference.
What would you say to this? Some say that the dissolution of the belief isn't really the end of it, that it's kind of a energetic contraction that doesn't have anything to do with belief or words or concepts or believing or not believing anything, that there's an energetic contraction that has happened, and until that kind of explodes out back out into the wholeness, that can still cause some suffering.
Well, I think anything that you're talking about, or all the things you are talking about, are an experience, and they mean nothing. They're just an experience. And so I've had an experience of self-realization. I've had an experience of enlightenment. I've had an experience of walking the dog. They make no difference to what you are. They're still just more appearances. And in the end, all of that accumulation is going to get buried in the ground. I mean, it truly makes no difference. For the seeker, the benefit, I suppose, of this is that the search ends. But so what? The search began. It was an experience. Now it's ended. It's over. That experience is done. But there's no great reward for having completed the search, so to speak. On the other hand, I understand that it's all-consuming, as it was for me, and very important to do. But it's just another thing on the other side. It's like the story of when you walk through the door, you turn around and realize the door was never there. The search is like that. And when it's over, so what?
And when it's over, it's really over, isn't it? I mean, there's no trace of it.
For me, it was.
Right.
When it was over and done.
Yeah.
For others, maybe not. Many people continue to write and teach and talk and carry on. And for me, it was just, I was done with this.
Yes.
And occasionally, I'll still talk, but I'm not out pushing the message, really.
Right. Yes, we've noticed. I hear from quite a few seekers that have either listened to your podcast or many others, and they kind of have this lament. Well, asking who am I or investigation, that really hasn't worked to deconstruct the me. There's this conviction still remains, even though when I look for a person, I find nothing. What would you say to that?
Well, in their own words, they look for something, they find nothing. So what are they going to do with that? There's nothing there. They find nothing, but they're still claiming there's something there, even though they find nothing. It's like denying the evidence. And I really think that in the context that you asked the question, I realize that for each individual it could be different, but it really sounds like a perspective of someone finding nothing.
Yes.
And not really getting outside of themselves to realize that there's nothing and letting go of that. And I don't know how good an answer that is, but it seems like there's someone that's still doing the investigation and still finding nothing, and they don't know what to do with themselves as a result.
So it's kind of like at that stage, if there's such a thing as a stage, the investigation is really not complete yet, yes?
The deconstruction wouldn't be done because there's still someone that has a vested interest here in finding an answer.
And someone who knows that there's nothing to find?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, and I'm not sure I've ever said it on these podcasts or anything, but I don't know that it has to be a gritting of the teeth, high-intensity examination, where you're really racking your brain looking for the answer here, as much as it is just a casual questioning of things as they come up throughout the day. The question comes up, you want to go to lunch, and you pause for just a second and look to see who's answering that. Is there anyone answering the question, even though the answer comes up? The body's tired, and it's like you stop and say, well, who's tired? And just casually like that, not every single event that goes through the day.
Yeah.
Just, 4 or 5 times a day, you stop and ask who. And over time, that becomes a part of the habitual thinking, and it gets examined on its own. And eventually, once it's been answered 1,000 times, can't find anybody, then the question goes away.
Kind of like that metaphor you used of that machine playing tic-tac-toe with itself in war games, right? It just gives up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very nice. So a lot of people I've heard talk about that despite the clear absence of a me, or, the belief in a separate entity really is not there anymore, that they still erupt into tantrums when stuff happens. And what would you say, what's really going on there? Is that just stimulus response and has nothing to do with what's pointed to, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just because a person believes that a certain whatever has been achieved doesn't mean that the body doesn't get hungry, doesn't get tired, doesn't get upset, doesn't get frustrated. This is a part of the experience. So what? It's still just an appearance within what you are. And if people will look back and see that, go back to the pointers of presence and awareness, and in the middle of a tantrum, realize that they are present, they are aware, that presence and awareness is unchanged, untouched, indifferent about the entire event, and even if it's not a tantrum, even if it's, laughing hysterically or having the best time, it's still just appearance on what they are. And it comes and it goes. It can be cyclical. It can be not, it just comes up and it goes away, whatever. It has a beginning, it has an end, and it's over. What you are doesn't. It's always there at all times.
But it still seems sometimes that for a lot of people I talk to, it kind of gets stuck for them. Well, what do you mean by that? It's like I think maybe it's turning an awareness into an object.
Well, I think that there's a bill of goods out there that's being sold, that people have an expectation that once this is understood, once the search is done, whatever, that they are somehow going to be different, that they're going to be at peace all the time, that they're going to be living in bliss, and nothing's going to upset them, and, it's all going to smell like flowers and be pleasant temperatures everywhere they go.
Yeah.
And that's just not the facts.
Right. So expectation is a big one, isn't it?
It is a big one. It's a preconceived idea of what's being pointed to, and once that preconceived idea is there, then the search is really about fulfilling that idea. It's not about seeing what's being pointed to. So and so met a guru, and they believe that they're whole and complete, and they've done the search thing, and they were smiling all the time and walked with a soft foot and had a gentle voice and blah, blah, blah. So they think that's what they're going to be like when it's over. And I've talked to some people that are afraid of becoming that. The search is on for them, but, they want guarantees that their life is going to go on like it was, and they're still going to care about their children, and they're still going to support their families. And so, of course you are.
Yeah.
Um, what this is really pointing to is what's always been and is the way it is now. It's not about introducing something new. It's not about bringing a change to who you think you are. It's about realizing there isn't anyone there now. There hasn't ever been anyone there before. But life goes on. It's seeing what is right now.
Well, many of these expressions talk about space-like awareness as being your true nature, or presence awareness, or awareness of presence.
Yeah, well, there's.
But the word isn't it. I think that's what I'm trying to get at, right?
There's hundreds of pointers, but obviously you can't just say this is what it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't need all the pointers. How do you put something in front of someone that doesn't exist in any context that the brain can deal with? You can just kind of use words and point because it's obvious it's here, it's obvious it's there, it's obvious it's everywhere. But even though it's obvious, it's not a thing that the mind can wrap itself around and get a hold of.
You use the word brain a lot, which I think, for me, kind of points to machinery, right? The brain is sort of like this machine that's got some programs kind of wired into it, and so when you say that this investigation is really a brain matter or a brain phenomenon,
and so is the search.
And the search is a brain phenomenon, yes. Well, here's one that I really wanted to kind of have you nail down. A lot of people kind of talk about creating possibilities for being in the world once it's clear that the presence is what is real and that what we are, and you can actually create some possibilities for some future that wasn't going to happen anyhow. And is that just bullshit?
Well, who would create it? Yeah, to give you the pat answer. Well, I think it's all bullshit. Anything that is, well, in context, up against what you are, everything is just appearance. So even creating possibilities is just another appearance within what you are. It's just more experience, more stuff, more add-on, whatever. There's no one doing it, no one to claim it. So what happens is, a person wants to create something, so they have a goal, they work towards it, it gets developed, and it gets accomplished, and then they turn around and say, look what I did.
Right.
But in part of the deconstructing that we've been talking about, you go back and look at all the things that went into this, and no one was doing it. Events were happening, but no one's doing them. Things are developed, but no one's developing them. Creation happens, but no one's creating it. It's just more appearance. And in reality, nothing is happening. Up against what you are, nothing is happening. And so a new possibility arises. Cellular phones. What a cool thing. But in the end, does it matter? And does it touch what you are? No. Is that any reason to just stop creating? No.
So there's really no, other than the organism's natural functioning, there's no really kind of survival urge left, is there? By that I mean there's no trying to gain something in order to feel better someday than you feel now, or something like that.
In my experience?
Yes.
Well, you know me. There's a lot of doing going on.
Yes.
I stay very busy.
Yes.
Am I just staying busy to try to become something? No.
Right.
Am I staying busy so that people will think a certain way of me? No. Do I do anything for those reasons? No. It's just nature of the beast. I do things.
Yes. That's kind of what I suspected would be your reply, but I really wanted to get it on the tape because I think it's a valuable pointer to because this notion of that, well, if I just had this, then I'd retire and write books, or I'd unretire and form a new business of some sort. But you do what you do, don't you? And of course, then the question might be for someone who's listening to this, well, who's doing it? But that's really the core of the inquiry, isn't it? Who's doing it?
It was.
Was.
For for me now, that question never comes up.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I mean, there's just absolute freedom from the whole search thing, and so I use the word I anytime it comes up. It's part of language. I stay busy, I eat, I sleep, I.
Yeah.
But it references nothing when it's said.
So
It's
the
just-
I does point to something, but it's not a reference point.
It's just communication. It's
Okay.
talking about something that makes no difference and doesn't matter.
Just a convenience.
It's just language.
Right.
There's no monitoring to make sure my words are correct in that sense.
No invite police.
No invited police.
Not a you, not a, you don't tolerate much of that, I'll bet.
No.
Because it's really kind of off the track, isn't it?
I don't care.
But yet,
If the invited police come up and say, "Hey, you said da 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 da," it's like, get a life.
yeah.
You're looking in the wrong direction here.
Yeah.
Why are you chasing after my words when you still have this obvious issue you need to resolve for yourself?
Yeah.
Otherwise it wouldn't matter to you.
Now, if someone hears you say, "I don't care," I know you well enough to know that you care very deeply about your family, your children, the work you do seems to be. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that's just a functioning of that brain-body mechanism. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Clearly, you don't play guru. You
No.
don't play guru. You're not looking for followers, and you're not concerned about whether your book sells or not. None of that. I mean, that's all just completely off the table, isn't it? Yeah. And yet, I've heard you say, "I believe and know for myself," something along these lines. I believe and know for myself that there's this peace and love that is real and is, I forget how you put it.
Well, it's above and beyond anything that is a physical love or a physical peace.
All right.
I mean, if we talk about peace now, we're talking about, the body being comfortable, nice and quiet environment, and not being disturbed, and you're not angry. We're really talking about an emotional state, and no infringements upon the body. And this is a peace that has nothing to do with that. This is a peace that is not able to be disturbed. That peace can be disturbed.
Yes.
With the phone ringing.
Peace of mind you're pointing to as that which can be disturbed, yes?
Yeah, and the body can be disturbed. I mean, you can be in absolute peace with the body and 2 seconds later have a cramp. It can be disturbed very easily.
Yes.
And as I've said before, bring me the most peaceful, tree-hugging individual you can find and I'll piss them off. It is possible.
Well, yes,
because
I know
it's a
I showed
show.
up.
If somebody's at peace all the time like that, they're putting on a show for you.
Yeah.
That's all that's going on because it's not genuine. But the peace that you are is born from a timeless existence. I mean, it's absolute stillness that's just unassailable because there's no one to assail it, no thing to assail it. And it's the same with the love that's there. The human love is very emotional, and it's very can be very critical. It can turn to anger very quickly. And it can be very possessive. It can take a lot of forms. At the same time, it can be very, very nice, but it's still not the real love. It's not the love that's born from timeless existence, that is absolutely so pure and so unchanging that it can't be described. Now, every time I say this, I hesitate because it's like, all right, now I've just told people to go pursue that. You can't. It's not something that is the goal to achieve or get, or that's your thing to know that you're there, or anything else. It's my experience.
So even the most profound experience of love, feeling of love, whatever, is still an appearance and not what's being pointed to.
Exactly. Because anything that you've got your arms around, so to speak, your mental arms around, is temporal.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's going to get buried. It had a beginning, it had an end. What's being pointed to didn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end, and is what you are and has always been there. But you can't bring it into your own mental, conceptual life and live it. Can't possess it.
Yeah,
There's no one to possess that.
Yeah.
It is what you are, but there's no one to possess it. And trying to get it is someone trying to get something, and that makes two, and that's non-duality.
That's duality.
Or that is duality, yes.
Right. Or dualism.
Mm-hmm.
Dualism. I'm not you, and you've got something I need and want, so would you please come over and give it to me?
Exactly.
You probably already answered this, and that maybe there's something else about it. How about choices, plans, decisions? For example, we plan to meet today. How does that fit in with this message that there is no one making plans, yet plans certainly seem to happen?
Well, a decision is just a thought.
Right.
A plan is just a thought. You have countless thoughts daily. They come and they go. A few of them may stick to the wall, so to speak. They become a decision, they become a plan, but they're no more significant than the thought that came through and went out. Some of them stick because there seemed to be a benefit to doing them. Whatever that may be. More security, more whatever.
It's in a way sort of all part of the butterfly effect.
Absolutely. It's all the butterfly effect. And I think I covered it in the book of seeing the steps that things go through to arrive at a decision. I think I covered it in talking about the little kid and the peas or the green food or whatever, and not liking it. And developing prejudices towards certain things and so forth. And it's really just conditioning. And so one says, do you want to have chocolate or vanilla ice cream? The answer's already there. And the brain starts processing and makes a decision and offers it up, and then this I claims it. I want, I decided, I need, I'm going to, but the thoughts have already taken place, the brain's already processed it, and has offered up the answer, and then the claiming happens afterwards.
So it's really an afterthought or an overlay kind of thing, isn't it? Or
it's a conditioned response. It's Pavlov's dog.
Yeah. Bob often says, start from the fact of being. John Wheeler also says something similar. Start from the fact of your own being. They say, the Sargadata, I think, said, stay with the I am. Not the I am concept, but the I am-ness itself. Is this a pitfall if the deconstruction hasn't yet happened, to try to stay with the I am, or come into the search from the conviction that I'm already what I seek?
No, I don't think so. I think it's coming at it from two different points of view, or rather two different angles. One is a positive and the other is a negative. One is undoing, and if you just did the deconstruction, then there would be nothing left when it was done. But on the other hand, there's something here, and those pointers are showing what's here. So I think the two work very well together.
Perfect. So the Sargadata's book was named I Am That. And what is your interpretation of that I am that? What is the that and I am that?
Well, I think that it's that because whatever that is can't be put into words. He didn't say I am a light bulb because that's something that could be put into words and conceptual thought would understand and could grasp. But just saying that is pointing to something that can't be put into words. I don't know how many pages he tried to, covered trying to
About
do it.
400.
and other people, there's thousands and thousands of pages out there trying to point to whatever that is. And some come to terms with what that is and understand and see, and the search gets resolved for them.
Now, when Tim was here over the weekend, he said, I had a really interesting conversation with. Well, John pointed to a bug on the sidewalk and said, is that an appearance? Or something like that. And then he said, what about the thought that comes and goes? Isn't that an appearance? What about this body that seems to be here? Isn't that an appearance? Can you find anything that's not an appearance to what you are? And if you kind of start from the fact that what you are is not a concept, what you are is not an experience, not a feeling, not anything, and all things are appearances to that. And, it seemed to really hit home for him, so I wonder if you could say a little more about that.
I think you did a great job.
Oh.
No, that's really it. And at that point, we were talking about, some of the things, the thoughts that go along with the deconstructing, and to go out and sit on the sidewalk and watch a bug go by, and it's just doing the bug thing. Whatever it is, it's doing the bug thing like all the other bugs that are like it. And if you look at it, it's just an appearance within what you are, and it's just doing the bug thing. And step up to a bigger creature, step up to a dog, step up to a horse, step up to a tree. They're all just doing their thing based on their makeup, their genetics, build, whatever, plan, seed design, whatever you want to call it,
right.
And then turn that same objectivity onto your own body and realize it's just doing the human thing. There's nothing unique about you.
Oh.
There's nothing unique about this other. They're all just doing the human thing.
Nobody's special.
And in those kind of things, you begin to put your self-importance in perspective, and then begin to realize that it's really insignificant. You put it up against time and realize it's truly insignificant. You put it up against space and you realize it isn't even that. It doesn't matter. And the vested interest just starts to go away. It still does what it's always done, just like the bug does. But there's no vested interest there.
So this doesn't necessarily happen all at once, then? It can be just a slow fading away of the sense of identity?
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Yeah. The deconstruction for me was methodical and over several months. And then one day it was just kind of like, that was the end of it. It's kind of like, here's this whole conceptual me thing. Bottom drops out. It kind of fell through the floor, and that was it. Over and done with.
And can you say a little bit about what John Wheeler's pointers, kind of like what hit home for you when you read John's pointers and you started to kind of investigate in this way?
I don't remember specifically any one of them, but for in my experience reading John's stuff, and I think I said this in one of his forwards or something, was he just beats the same drum over and over and over at the same tempo, at the same pace, and doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room. So and his pointers, which I believe he picked up from Bob and probably subsequently from the Sargadata, was the presence awareness. And those two words, being pointers, were kind of the cornerstones of my search. But, John Wheeler can write 100 books and say the same thing different ways every time, and from chapter to chapter saying the same things in a different way, and it just sinks in. In saying things so many times the same way, you eventually get all the questions answered. You run out of buts.
Some wag said that repetition is the mother of skill, and I'm just wondering if you would say, it sounds like what you maybe said was that deconstruction could be, or that repetition could be the mother of deconstruction in a way.
Well, I think it is. I think it's really examining something until the answers. I read somewhere, a conclusion isn't necessarily right, it's just a convenient place to stop. Yeah. Or a convenient place to stop thinking. And this really is going beyond a conclusion, because a conclusion, in a sense, can be just a belief. Well, I now believe this. Well, you can be talked out of a belief.
Yes.
You can have very firm convictions that something is a certain way, but as long as it's still just a belief for you, you can be talked out of it. You can be shown evidence. And I think to really finish the search from the deconstruction side, everything has to be, or it has to be examined from every angle. And for me at least, and that was, examining the bug. When the dog walked through the room, I remember the thought coming up one time, it was my dog, and the question was, who are you to be owning a dog? Who is it that claims ownership here? And then I started applying that to the other thing. Well, who claims ownership of the house? Who claims ownership of the car? And who claims ownership of the body? And who's doing this? And you can find no one, like you said. People say, I can't find anybody. Well, don't stop there. Keep looking, until the question no longer comes up. And there's nobody to find, and so the mind loses interest in it.
To use a chess analogy, because I know you like to play chess and you're good at it, it's kind of like, I see for a lot of us, myself included along the way, was like playing a chess game and being really, really close to checkmate, like checkmating the mind or brain, reaching its checkmate where the whole thing just it gives up. But before that point is reached, actually resigning the game, even though you're about to win.
Right. Or you're about to lose.
Or you're about to lose. Yeah.
You know, it's not seeing things through to their end. It's being in a hurry, trying to take a shortcut. This is not difficult. It's not rocket science. You know, it's a very easy thing, a very relaxed thing, but it does take the steps. You know, if there are steps, it does take the examining of the beliefs to see if they're really true. And the core one is that I am me, and this is mine, and this is my life, and da-da-da, and find out who is being referred to with those words. When I say me, who's being talked about?
Like, what's a me?
What is it?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody seems to think they have one. But is it real?
Where is it?
And the assumption is, of course it's real. It seems very obvious. But it doesn't stand up to questioning.
And it's just because it's been habitually reinforced over many years or decades.
Well, from the time you were born.
Yeah.
You know, oh, look how cute he is, or how cute she is. And from then on, you're somebody. And these are your needs, and these are the things you can do. These are the things you can't do. And it's total conditioning. And it's false.
Yes.
It's on an absolutely false premise.
The premise being,
that there's someone there.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a philosopher I read years ago named Ayn Rand, and she said, whenever you're about to say something, check your premise. Check the premise. What's the premise for the assumption that I'm me? And it's, can you challenge that assumption? Can you challenge that premise? And I think that's what you're kind of pointing out, is that really has to be done, and nobody can do it for you, can they?
Right. Can anyone do it for you? I suppose you could sit down with somebody and guide them through it. You know, question, answer, help examine this. But in the end, I think you're probably right. And once you've given them the tools of how to look at this, then they need to go off on their own and just do it.
Send them on their way and say, just here's how you look, and go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, that's been a question a lot of people have had is, well, how do I look? How do I investigate? How do I, like that? And I think you've already answered that, but if there's anything else that comes out to say, that'd be great.
The opportunity's there at every second.
Yes.
You know, right now someone's listening to this, they can say, I'm listening to this. You say, who's listening to it? You know, and is what really happening is that the brain is hearing sounds, processing those sounds, turning them into language, turning them into mental pictures in the head, and presenting them to supposedly another you. The brain turned all this sound into a concept, and now there's a you that's saying that you're hearing it and understanding it, and that is not what's going on at all. You know, it's being interpreted, and then there's this, you know, I've talked about this like sub-process in the brain, or the sub-loop of me. You know, that's joined to this thing that says, now I'm hearing it. And if you look, it's not what's going on. It's just brain activity. That's it. And this me is just more brain activity. Without that me loop in there, would the sound still be being processed and understood? Yeah. And so all of a sudden someone's hearing, but no one's doing it. Or there's hearing going on, but there's no one hearing. And that's what we're pointing to, is that the hearing's going on, but there's no one doing it without that thought of me. Then it's just happening.
Yes. I've heard there's an organ in the body called the appendix, which is absolutely unnecessary. It sounds like the mental appendix.
Yeah.
Totally unnecessary, irrelevant, immaterial.
Causes a lot of conflict.
Yes. I have an analogy that, like your comment on, kind of a variation on the mind being a perfect servant but a lousy master, that old saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like that the mind, or the identity, really, the idea of me, has somehow managed to overthrow the king and get himself on the seat, but he's a servant. He's a lackey in the court, and he's somehow overthrown the king, and now he's on the throne, and he's incompetent to lead. And yet, it seems that the mind of that loop that you were talking about is pretty much in charge of what's going on in the world now. It's like an upset 5-year-old is in charge.
Well, exactly. And the more, and I'm going to say the more vested interest there is in the me or in the person, the greater the suffering is going to be. You can see this on all kinds of levels. The most egotistical, narcissistic, self-serving people that you can think of are the most miserable ones. And then you find people who donate or dedicate their life to serving others, then they can generally be pretty happy people because they're not really all about themselves. They're really about helping others. And then all the way up to, the ones that have done this non-duality thing and resolved the search, and then there's just what is. And there's no vested interest anymore in whatever.
Not even, quote, in serving others at that point.
No.
And yet that may happen.
It's just whatever's coming up.
Right. So if the organism is kind of programmed, or however you want to say it, to be of service to people, it does. And if it's not, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that there's no right or wrong in that whatsoever. Right? There's no shoulds in this, are there?
No.
None.
No.
Zero.
None.
Zip.
Matters not.
Matters not.
Because in the end, it all gets buried anyway.
Mm.
I mean, this is really and truly a very temporal event that is absolutely pointless and meaningless. It means nothing.
That doesn't mean anything either.
No one's born, no one dies, and nothing happens in between. No different than a dream. A nightly dream can seem all important and the most powerful thing that's going on. But when you wake up, it's over. It doesn't matter. It's gone. And no different for this. You can be 120% committed to your life, to those around you, and have a great life. And when the lights are out, the lights are out. It's over. There's no memory of it. Nothing. Never happened.
As far as the body's concerned, they put you 6 feet in the ground, throw dirt in your face, and all go to the coffee shop for breakfast.
And there's nobody that knows that happened.
So talk about a moot point, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the word temporal a lot because to me it kind of points to the temporality or temporariness of it. It's all temporary.
Just right now. The only reality is what you are. It's the only thing not moving and not changing. Everything else is the show.
I remember one of the Zen patriarchs, might have been the sixth one, Wei Ning, who said, "From the beginning, not a thing is." And that's just, to a guy like me who was, accomplished and then, was a seeker and went all these places, met all these people, traveled all around and talked to gurus and whatnot. I was like, what? Can you say a little about that?
Well, what can you say? I mean, it's a true statement, but it's true from a certain perspective. From the absolute perspective, it's absolutely true. From a mind-body perspective, it's not true. I've done tons of things as well. So what?
Can you say a little about perspective? Because I think that's something like points of view. People sometimes talk about, from this point of view or that point of view. But what is a point of view? Isn't that a reference point?
Yeah, it's a conceptual context. Just more of the show.
Okay, so again, an appearance to what we are.
Yeah.
Or what is real. Not what we are, but what is real.
More mental noise.
Yeah. So what is real?
What is real? What you are is real. Nothing else.
Right. And that never changes, right?
That which never changes never moves.
And is there a source of that?
A source of that?
or a cause of that?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't find a cause for that. I find that to have always been.
To have always been so.
Yeah. And looking for a cause, then we're trying to take something that's timeless and put it into time to say, here's a beginning.
Because with cause comes effect, right?
Well, yeah. Well, it also requires a start. And a start requires time. And you get out of the space-time thing, and something can be timeless.
So outside of the space-time matrix or paradigm is what's real.
Yeah. Well, it's what you are.
And what you are.
Yeah. It's not moving. It's not changing. There's no time, no space. Those are just appearance.
And it's not what John is, it's what everyone is, yes?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is what John is, of course, that includes, because as far as I can tell, you're included in everyone.
Well, what you are is timeless and spaceless. Those words have no meaning to what you are. It's always right now, and it's always right here.
Prior to language, it is, yes?
Prior to everything.
Prior to
Everything is just a show. It's an event that's happening.
And it's quite a wild show. For some of us, the show has been kind of almost like a nightmare.
But that's just a subjective interpretation.
Yes, of course. Some tornadoes, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you only take this life to be a wild show because you don't remember the thousands of dreams that you've had and have the vested interest in them. You know, this is the dream that you've vested the interest in. So deconstruct it. Let it go.
Excellent.
And then it's right now always. It's right here always. And the rest of it's just appearance.
Deconstruct it. Do the work. And without doing the work, you're still going to be flipping around, flopping around with all these...
There's always going to be me doing a search.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed along the way and kind of pondering the question, who am I, gently, not really kind of, trying to slam it, but just going, well, who am I? And I noticed that there's this loop. I think you mentioned a loop. And the loop here, what I've noticed was, who am I? I'm me. Who am I? I'm me. Who am I? I'm me. Like the question is always answered, I'm me. And, well, wait a minute. This is a hamster, running around a wheel.
Yeah, well, then you turn the question backwards. Who's me?
Yeah, who's me? Where is this me?
Yeah, I mean, the brain is going to try to answer the question. And if it can get by with a simple answer, it's going to do it.
And evade the deeper looking.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to kind of play games, and ask the question differently. If it starts to give you a pat answer that you realize is not unraveling anything, it's not deconstructing anything anymore, it's just sitting in neutral here, then come at it from a different angle.
The brain is a very clever sort of programming, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It wants to protect that concept that it's built so much around of this organism, and me, needs protecting. Yeah. So anything that's taking anything that's assaulting that or challenging that is resisted.
It's kind of like a perversion of the natural tendency of the survival of the built-in survival mechanism to protect the organism. Yes.
Yeah.
And it gets perverted into protecting identity, and anything that I take myself to be, I have to defend. Yes.
Well, I remember when I first started reading this, and the idea of this me and stuff basically going away, and that was scary. What does that mean? What's going to be left? And it really is just a misunderstanding of the pointing.
I heard from a number of people who expressed that when they get down close to this, that there is a terror. They're terrified.
It can be.
Yeah. Well, that's not a rule either, is it?
Well, it's not a rule.
It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, but that's still just a part of the show that's happening, and is not what is being pointed to here. It's having a vested interest in something that doesn't matter and isn't real. It's an illusion. Let it go.
Vested interest, I think, is one that that sort of way of looking at this. Okay, do you have a vested interest in some outcome, some expectation, some Yes.
then the brain's going to be trying to fulfill that. That's what you're going to be working on.
Yeah.
I think that the shortest possible route is picking the fewest tools that people have said work and sticking just with those few tools, not complicating it, keeping it very simple, very direct, not trying to unravel the mysteries of the universe or anything else. Just very simple questions, very simple answers. And as I said, if the answers start to get repetitive, where there's no deconstruction happening, then come at it from a different way, but keep with the simple, tried and true tools. You know, pointers like presence, pointers like awareness, beingness, spaceless, timeless, presence, now. You know, just a handful of tools and stick with them.
Rather than trying to build a whole tall cabinet full of all sorts of...
Yeah, and a library of all the great teachings that you understand what they said thoroughly, but have no idea what they meant.
Very good. Now, one of the things that just popped up on the screen is that there are some that say, and some that I think pretty authentic in expressing this, that say that they don't give out any practice at all because they found that for them, all the practices fail. Now, in a way, I rather like that because the ultimate failure, of course, is that as the meltdown of the brain just stops, comes to a full stop, and that's that. And then the search is done. So the really, although you've given, I think, some really, really great sort of pointing to, okay, just stick with a few things and so on. But what about the guy who, or the gal who, does that, and he does that for quite a long time, and it just doesn't lead back to home? Does that, first off, does that really matter? I would suppose not, because it's another appearance, right?
Well, it doesn't matter, but on the other hand, it matters a great deal.
To the seeker, yes.
Yeah, because there's a great deal of suffering in the search. Does that suffering matter? No. It's going to get buried. It's a temporal event. It'll pass. But at the same time, I'm very familiar with the intensity that the search can bring on to get resolution. And so in that context, yeah, it matters. Once again, a matter of perspective.
Yes.
So, yeah, it matters. And so what do? Try something else.
Yeah, you're not really stuck with anything in this,
No.
Are you? Right.
No. I think people can be very honest with themselves in looking whether or not there is a deconstruction, a letting go, a freedom happening. Because if the deconstruction is being done, then there is a freedom that is happening. The vested interest is breaking up.
It's unmistakable, isn't it?
It's subtle, but it's there.
Yes.
There is a breaking up of the intensity of things, of the importance to me of things, because all these little legs are starting to get cut off. Can there be a backsliding? Well, anything is possible. Sure, you can fall back into it, but then just pick it back up again. You know, the bad day comes along and you get all wrapped up in yourself and all. Yeah, so what? Nothing's really lost. It's just nothing will be gained. You know, just go back after it again. And like I said, if you feel like the deconstruction has hit a neutral, where the brain is just giving you the same answers, it's just going in a circle, you're just chasing your tail, come at it from a different angle. You know, what's the brain trying to defend here? What's being protected? You know, why is this the only answer that's being offered up? You know, just examine the thought process. It's fascinating to watch how the brain accumulates and assigns and sorts and makes use of the information it has to fortify the individual, to make it somebody and something.
He's rebuilding the walls of the citadel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I sit down with people now, run across someone, not necessarily the secret's coming out, but just out in public, wherever. And, you know, if I run into one that's just talking about themselves constantly, you know, I did this, look how great I am, oh, don't you like what I did, da-da-da-da-da. It's almost sad
Yeah.
because you can just see the pain in trying to get attention for and justify this me. You know, it's taking a tremendous amount of energy and effort.
It is sad, and having been through that myself, I can attest to that fact.
And having been through it, you can attest to how much energy it takes to try to keep it up.
Oh,
You know, it's a hunger that's never satisfied. You could have someone come in and flatter you all day long and worship your feet, and when they leave, you need somebody else there to start doing it right away. It has to be replaced
yes.
because there isn't anything solid that the foundation's on.
Yeah, it's a house built on quicksand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you talking about a show that you went to see where the star of the show was a very well-known performer, but it was kind of pathetic in a way because it was all about look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Sure.
Look at me.
We don't need to hide her.
Okay.
I don't know her, but probably a very neat lady and all. But my interpretation, my perspective of the show was very self-gratifying. It was all about me and look at me in this and look at my pictures here and very empty. You know, it wasn't trying to give back or do anything. It was just self-indulgent.
Yes. Yes.
Does that mean there's anything wrong with putting pictures up or having things around you that mean things? Absolutely not. The judgment call is, do I need people to see this? Do I need people to know this about me? You know, what if they don't notice it? Do I drag them over and make sure they see it and know this about me? You know, if it's there for your enjoyment, your pleasure, your memories, that's a totally different deal than what we're talking about here.
Sure. Just referring to, I had some pictures of my racing career on the wall, and they're now down. I liked them when they were up, and now I like the wall plain. I don't know what that means anything. It probably doesn't mean a damn thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the things that got triggered in what you said is that the whole idea of an audience, that if I'm not whole and complete and sufficient within myself, I've got to have an audience to tell me I am. And no matter how many thousands, tens of thousands of people tell me I'm great, you know, poor Michael Jackson. I mean, the late Michael Jackson, perfect example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huge talent. Guy who was born with enormous talent. And all the bizarre stuff that he put himself through to try to fix or change or alter something about himself, because for him, who he was his body and his voice and so on.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, maybe as a way to kind of close out, we could talk a little bit about the identification with the body. It seems to be kind of one of the last things that's the last thing that you withhold. You know, well, okay, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm the old netty approach. But damn it, it still seems like I am this body.
Is that body just an appearance? I mean, if it's being seen, then it's an appearance to something. So, okay, the body's being seen, so it's an appearance to the brain. The activity in the brain is being perceived, so it's an appearance to what? You know, and it's real easy to fall into a trap here where a thought is perceiving a thought in a sense. But even that is still just show. I mean, this is to get out of that is a step that no one takes. It's the realization that all of this, everything, is just appearance to what you are. Everything is just appearance to what you are. You know, that while all of this listening has been going on, while the contemplation's going on, while the search is going on, while whatever's going on, what you are remains absolutely still, absolutely present, absolutely aware, absolutely absolute, unchanging by whatever it is. And that is what is being pointed to.
Absolute.
Yeah.
Really nothing left to say.
Never was anything to say.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Thank you very much, John Greven.